Thanks for joining me again as we look back at another great classic film. This is one of my all-time favourites, a great story built around an incredibly strong and appealing central character, featuring some of the most memorable scenes and the best and most often repeated lines of film dialogue, told with a balance of laughter and tragedy. It is Cool Hand Luke from 1967. Based on the novel Cool Hand Luke by Donn Pearce, who was a merchant seaman, then a counterfeiter and safecracker before writing about his experiences working on a chain gang in a Florida prison. Columbia Pictures passed on the film rights, having just lost a lot of money on the prison movie King Rat in 1965. Warner Brothers picked up the rights and paid Pearce to adapt the screenplay with his draft reworked by Frank Pearson. After working in television for over a decade, Stuart Rosenberg showed interest in making his first film project and took the idea to Jack Lemmon and his wife Felicia Farr, who then struck a deal with Columbia Pictures for their company JLM to produce. Conrad Hill was hired as the cinematographer, while Paul Newman's brother Arthur was hired as the unit production manager. While the script was being developed, Jack Lemmon and Telly Savalas were considered for the lead. Paul Newman asked to play Luke after reading the novel and hearing about the project, and it was Jack Lemmon who insisted, after reading the script, that Paul Newman was the best choice. Newman agreed to take the role provided Donn Pearce and Frank Pearson did not change the script to play to his strengths, as he wanted a part that would really stretch him. Aldo Ray unsuccessfully auditioned for the role of Dragline, and Telly Savalas was also considered for the part, but was in Europe filming The Dirty Dozen and refused to fly back. George Kennedy was given the role, a decision vindicated by his subsequent Academy Award-winning performance. Strother Martin, known for his appearances in westerns, was cast as the cruel and insensitive captain, and Luke's dying mother Arletta, who visits him in prison, was given to Joan Van Fleet after Bette Davis rejected the role. In minor roles, Richard Davalos was cast as Blind Dick, Dennis Hopper as Babaloogatz, and Henry Dean Stanton as Tramp. Donn Pearce also makes a cameo appearance as Sailor. Joy Harmon was cast as the young woman teasing the prisoners by washing a car after a silent audition in front of Rosenberg and Newman wearing a bikini won her the role. She almost turned down the role when she was asked to smoke marijuana before the shoot, thinking it would relax her. When she objected, they dropped the request. Morgan Woodward, who played Boss Godfrey, described his character as a walking Mephistopheles, the evil spirit whom Faust sold his soul to. He remained in character during breaks between scenes, sitting in a chair, wearing his mirrored sunglasses and not speaking to anyone. Originally to be filmed in Florida where the story was set, Warner Brothers moved the production to California for budgetary reasons. Filming took place on the San Joaquin River Delta, with the set for the prison farm built in Stockton. The set was based on a Tavares Road prison in Florida where Pearce had served his time and included barracks, a mess hall, the warden's quarters, a guard shack and dog kennels, with the trees decorated with Spanish moss that was imported from Florida. The set caught the attention of a county building inspector who confused it with the migrant workers' housing and ordered that it be condemned. The film contains many recognisable and iconic scenes. The opening, where Luke cuts the heads off parking meters, was filmed in Lodi, California. After the filming, the city did not replace the meters, and for years afterwards it was a minor tourist attraction. The road tarring sequence resulted in the actors actually blacktopping a mile-long stretch of highway for the county. The car wash scene was filmed with Rosenberg instructing Harmon in the different movements and expressions he wanted. Originally planned to be shot in half a day, her scene took 3. The other angle, featuring the chain gang, was shot separately, with the prisoners watching a teenage cheerleader wearing an overcoat miming the scene, and forcing the actors to use their imagination as they ogled her. When Harmon filmed the scene, she was not trying to be sexy and had no idea how suggestive it was until she saw it at the premiere, where she was a little bit embarrassed. The fight scene between Dragline and Luke took 3 days to shoot, leaving Kennedy and Newman both completely exhausted from fighting, and in Newman's case from falling onto hard ground repeatedly. 200 hard-boiled eggs were provided for what was the most famous of sequences. Thanks to clever editing, Paul Newman only had to eat about 8 eggs, with the rest of them consumed by the cast and crew, who suffered from flatulence issues the next day. Harry Dean Stanton taught Paul Newman how to play Plastic Jesus, and Newman insisted on learning the banjo for the scene. As a result, the shoot was delayed until the second last day of production. The set was tense, electrically charged and strangely quiet, and when Newman finished, Rosenberg called print. Newman wanted another take, insisting he could do better, but Rosenberg told him nobody could have done it better. My favourite sequence covers the rules of the prison camp.
Any man forgets his number spends a night in the box. Any man loses his spoon spends a night in the box. Any man caught smoking in the prone position in bed spends a night in the box. Any man playing grab ass or fighting in the building spends a night in the box. Any man not in his bunk at 8 spends a night in the box. Any man turns in the wrong sheet spends a night in the box. Any man don't keep order spends a night in the box. I hope you ain't gonna be a hard case.
Director of photography Conrad Hall was repeatedly questioned by the studios, who wanted to ensure that he sufficiently showcased Paul Newman's famous blue eyes. One scene had to be shot 4 times before they were happy. Writer Donn Pearce was one of the few people who didn't like the movie, thinking Paul Newman was too scrawny and completely wrong for Luke. Rosenberg viewed Luke as a Christ-like character and filled the film with Christian imagery. Luke's prison number, 37, is a biblical reference, Luke 1:37, for with God nothing shall be impossible. Luke is a saint who wins over the crowds and is ultimately sacrificed. While he's not a physical threat to society, the crucifixion, his punishment, was out of proportion to his supposed crime. After winning the egg-eating bet, Luke lies exhausted on the table in a position suggesting his crucifixion. After learning of his mother's death, Luke sings Plastic Jesus. Towards the end of the film, Luke is holed up in a church and speaks to God in a conversation like the one depicted in the Gospel of Luke. After this talk, Dragline functions as a Judas, delivering Luke to the authorities and trying to convince him to surrender. In the final scene, Dragline eulogises Luke, explaining that despite his death, Luke beat the system. The closing shot shows inmates working on an intersection that is in the shape of a cross. On its release, the film received favourable reviews and was a box office success, grossing $16.2 million in the US, cementing Newman as one of the top actors of the time. Variety described Newman's performance as excellent and the supporting cast versatile. The Boston Globe felt that Cool Hand Luke hits hard, spares no punches, deals with rough, sadistic and unhappy men. The Chicago Tribune called it sharp, absorbing and extremely entertaining. The Los Angeles Times called the film a picture with riveting impact, a triumph for Newman that played at the level of observable reality. Time wrote that the beauty comes from the careful building of the individual's characters. Roger Ebert included the film amongst his great movies list, believing it was a product of its time and that no major film company would be interested in making the film today. He praised the location and stated that the physical presence of Paul Newman is the reason the movie works. The smile, the innocent blue eyes, the lack of strutting, which no other actor could have produced as effectively. During the Oscar nomination process, George Kennedy invested $5,000 in trade advertising to promote himself, later saying his salary was multiplied by 10 the minute he won the Academy Award. This was his only Academy Award nomination. There were nominations also for Best Actor for Newman, Best Screenplay and Best Original Score. Stuart Rosenberg was nominated for a Directors Guild of America Award for Outstanding Achievement. Golden Globe Award nominations were received by Paul Newman and George Kennedy. In 2005, it was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. The AFI rated Luke as the 30th greatest hero in American cinema history and rated Cool Hand Luke number 71 of America's most inspiring movies. Empire magazine ranked Luke as the 53rd greatest movie character. It's included amongst the 1,001 movies you must see before you die, included amongst the American Film Institute's top 400 most heart-pounding American movies and top 400 greatest American movies. So a lot of great reasons to watch this particular film. The incredibly strong, charming and ultimately tragic central character, supported by a very good and strong supporting cast. Brilliant comic, dramatic and tragic sequences in almost equal measure, great sets and location shooting, and some of the best and most memorable dialogue amongst films of the era. So, what I'd suggest you do is that you go to our website, find our virtual screenings page, find the link to this particular film, click on it and watch it. I think you'll love it. I absolutely adore this particular film. But as always, we'd invite you to come back, let others know your thoughts about the particular film and whether you'd recommend it for them also. And then we're back in the not too distant future with our next classic films review. Catch you next time.